Hi, I'm Mary Wing Soares, and I'm here today with Cindy Eaton for another installment of It's Your Choice. It's the political season, and that means that there's many, many issues that are going to come before us as voters. We're both Londonderry residents, and the issue that we're going to talk about today is the Cable Access Center. It's near and dear to my heart because I get to do these shows, I get to direct, I get to work the cameras. I've learned so much about editing and producing, and I know, Cindy, you have been very involved for many years with the Cable Access Center.
Yes.
So we have a situation now. The town has just realized that the funds that come from the cable access fees, the franchise fees, which had been set aside in a fund through an accounting decision. The fund was never voted on by the legislative body, which is us, the voters. It was used as an accounting tool, and it has just been the practice of the the town, to use that fund to hold the monies. And that fund, and that fund has been used to pay for the salaries, to pay for the equipment, and pay, I bet, part of the debt on this building.
Mm-hmm.
So there has been no tax impact to the Londonderry resident for the Cable Access Center to be built or to be equipped and to be utilized. And the benefits of having it have been manyfold.
It's a way for the public actually to represent their freedom of speech.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's
that's
the last bastion of freedom of speech.
Yes.
Because it's the only one that's controlled by the people.
Right.
You know, so we have a problem. And the problem is that those funds that had been in the cable revenues,
Special Revenue Fund,
right,
is what
the Special
they
Revenue
called it.
Fund, have been moved over to the undesignated fund balance of the town's budget.
Yes.
Because they believe that the fund is not legitimate. So you have come up with a warrant article that would create a fund.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you talk about that?
Okay. The warrant article that I created, I did with help from DRA. And what DRA is, the Department of Revenue and Accounting for the state of New Hampshire. They're the ones, when all the voting is over with, it gets sent to them to be approved and to figure out the tax impacts, the bottom line. So I've been talking to them quite frequently, and they did help me with some language. But basically what I'm trying to do is reinstall the article that the town manager has found to be illegal. That's all I'm doing, to reinstate the article that we've been voting on for 8 or 9 years.
So every year at deliberative session,
yes,
the moderator, the town moderator, gets up and he talks about a warrant article that raises and appropriates a certain amount of money for the Cable Revenue Fund. And the only difference this year is that, well, I guess there isn't going to be a difference because this year we will be doing the same thing. We'll be raising and appropriate a certain amount of money for the Cable Revenue Fund. But before, it was our understanding that 5% of the cable revenue for the town was going to this Cable Revenue Fund. Mm-hmm. And then recently, in the past few years, the town has said, well, you know, we're having a hard time with our budget. Let's take 1% or 1.5% from the Cable Revenue Fund and put it in the general fund. And that will offset the tax rate. And for the past couple of years, there have been people who have been vocal about not wanting that to happen because the cable funds are purchased by, are given to the town by the people who use cable.
Exactly.
Right? So in effect, So they wanted it to benefit the cable access center, which is what the original intent of the fund was.
Yes.
Okay. So, but still, the town has, voted to allow that to happen, that those funds have been going over to the general fund. But this year, it was different. This year, they have found another, I look at this as a loophole, personally. I think they have found themselves a loophole, and they have decided, well, we're not going to let this happen again this year. We're going to make it more difficult for those people who want to have the funds used the way has been used for the past however many years, 10, 15 years, that this building has been in existence. And this is what we're going to do. So you have come up with a warrant article that was originally number 8 on the ballot, right?
It was actually number 11.
I'm sorry, number 11. And theirs was number 16. So now
we should say what their article is, because their article sounds like it's helping cable access, but not really. You have to be very careful the way you read it. Their article, what they're trying to do is establish a special revenue fund article for the cable equipment that does not include the salaries or maintenance for the building or any other important things that are needed. It only goes for the equipment.
Right. Now, this year, the budget for the Cable Access Center is around $210,000. Are you aware?
Actually, it's more, well, originally it was $327,000.
Mm-hmm.
And
that included all
three personnel.
3 personnel, but was that just their salaries, or was that also equipment and overhead?
That was everything. That was the cable department budget.
Right.
Everything.
So supplies, equipment, anything that they might need would have to come out of that $300,000, $300,000+.
Exactly.
Okay. Then the town manager asked for one person to be removed from the budget.
Yes.
And so their budget has been lowered to 200 and, do you know?
65, I believe.
Okay, so $265,000.
Don't quote me on it. Could
okay,
be,
well, around $260,000.
Right.
How much in revenue do we take in that 5% of the franchise fee? How much do we take in every year to the cable department?
Every year, an estimate would be about $300,000 from revenues from cable users.
Okay. And has any of that fund been building up in the cable access fund?
Yes. The money for the budget money for the department comes out of the revenue, has been coming out of that revenue fund, and what is left over accumulates year after year. So we had, according to the town manager, $535,000 in that fund.
Mm-hmm. And that's been moved to the undesignated fund balance.
Yes.
And so this year, the town is proposing that the salaries and benefits and equipment and everything else come from the budget.
Yes.
And then next year, it would be in their fund, just the $200,000, their fund, or would that would start July 1st, 2012?
Yes, July 1st, 2012 would
they would put $200,000 into that fund, or the voters would if they approved that article.
Right.
Okay. But that's only for equipment. It's not for salaries and benefits and supplies and other needs that the department might have.
Exactly.
Okay. So up until now, it's been a self-funded entity.
Yes.
And now, with the article that the town wants to put forward, it will no longer be a self-funded entity.
No, exactly. The article is very clear in the fact that it is only going for cable equipment. Mm-hmm. It does not state anything about salaries or supplies or maintenance for the building or anything.
So I know that we had a lengthy discussion at the town meeting, not town meeting, but the town council meeting.
At the public hearing.
At the public hearing. And we discovered that the way your article is written, it doesn't appropriate the money, it just raises the money, right? It doesn't allow us to spend the money out of that account the first year.
Right, the first year it would just collect the revenues.
Mm-hmm.
And then in March of 2013,
The
we
voters
would
could
vote
Right.
on the cable department budget or anything else that refers to the cable department or PEG access, which is the public education and government access.
Mm-hmm.
So they have decided that there's no money for the rest of the cable department if they have to keep the revenues in this special cable revenue fund. But my argument is they have $535,000 in an undesignated fund. So when is it going to be designated, and what is it going to be designated for?
Right. So that's where we come in at the deliberative session.
Right.
In order for this fund to have a zero tax impact, we would have to say that we wanted to appropriate $265,000 or whatever the budget
Right.
is for the cable department this year, to be placed in that fund to be paid for the cable budget this year. And that way we're able to create this fund that, with the intent that the taxpayers have been voting on for the past umpteen years,
Right.
and not have any tax impact on the voters this year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Actually, I'm really surprised that the town manager or the town council didn't come up with this. They had it. They found that it was illegal, but we've been voting on it, like you said, for many years.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't understand why they didn't come forward with a special cable revenue fund
right.
themselves.
And how long did they have the language before the public hearing? How long before you had, did you submit it? Did you submit it to our town attorney as well as our
Yes.
town manager?
As I said, I was in contact with the Department of Revenue and Accounting,
Mm-hmm.
and I have, emails back and forth as well as talking on the phone, and they have approved my article as written in the warrant,
Mm-hmm.
and they have approved it as a zero tax impact.
Okay.
They have said that it should be a zero tax impact.
Mm-hmm. And one of the arguments by one of the town councilors was that it really should say whatever the tax impact of that $200,000 budget is would be on this article. But so that is something that you're still discussing, or do you have a final wording and final how it will look on the ballot?
I don't as yet. I'm still talking and emailing DRA back and forth to make sure that the wording is correct and legal. But right now, it looks as though I will be amending my article.
Mm-hmm.
I have to go over the figures again to make sure that I'm absolutely correct.
Right.
To include the money for 2012-13 budget.
Okay. And the town council has no right to change any taxpayers or any citizen's petition or a citizen's article. So that's why it couldn't be changed at the public hearing.
Right.
It can only be changed by the legislative body. So it's very important for taxpayers, for all of us, to come to the deliberative session.
Yes.
Now, the town's deliberative session is Tuesday, February 6th. Is that correct?
Yes, I think that's a Monday, though.
Oh, it's a Monday? Let me look at my handy-dandy calendar here. I was thinking it was Tuesday, but...
I know you would think because voting's always on Tuesday.
Right. No, you're right. It's Monday, February 6th, and is it being held, do you know, at the Londonderry High School in the cafeteria, just as the school deliberative session is?
It usually is. I'm assuming
Right.
that it will be
Right.
there.
Right, it has in the past. There is no quorum,
Yes,
so
there's no quorum.
every vote always counts, but it's different than the town meeting because changes can be made here, and what we do, what we change, or however we finish the night, it will go to the ballot that way, and then the larger body will have the ability to vote on it.
Exactly.
Okay, so both Cindy and I would encourage all of you to become knowledgeable about the different warrant articles. The town has, interestingly enough, originally their article was article number 16,
Yes.
and your article was article number 11. They have changed it so that their article is now number 11 and Cindy's article is number 12. And they have said that if Article 12 passes, then their article is moot. So both articles could theoretically pass,
Yes.
but theirs would become moot at that point. They would
Yes.
withdraw it or whatever. It just
Exactly.
wouldn't, because otherwise they would be appropriating $200,000 additional dollars, and they don't need to do that.
Exactly.
Yep. All you're asking for is what the cable department needs and what it earns by the franchise fees.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think that it's important for the voters to know at deliberative session that you can change your article as long as the intent is still the same. So that's what we hope to do,
Okay.
so that it truly will be
Right.
a zero tax impact to the voters, and it will take care of the cable department, a 3-person budget as well. So that's
Well-
what we're hoping for.
Right. Budgets are bottom line budgets, no matter what budgets they are, right?
Yes.
So if we appropriate a certain amount of money from the franchise fees, then the boss of that budget can do whatever that boss chooses to do, whether it means having 3 people on the payroll or 2 people or 1 person.
The intent, it's a little different when you take money from a special revenue fund. That does not come out of the budget. That comes out of the revenues.
Right.
So in some sense, you're right. He could take that money out that we have put in and still say no 3rd person, only 2 people, and that's a whole nother show. But he could do that. I don't know where he would spend the other 62 or whatever money it would be.
Would that just stay in the fund?
It could, but actually I don't think it can if my amendment goes through and states that that money can be taken from wherever.
Right. Well, I think
From the
then,
undesignated fund or the revenues or...
right. Well, we're going to, at the deliberative session, we'll have to have those answers, though, because we want to be able to be sure that we're very strong on our points
Yes.
at the deliberative session. I'm obviously in favor of your article, and, you know,
Thank you.
You're welcome. I appreciate that the town council is just trying to find ways to lower our tax bill, but they're really trampling on freedom of speech here when they do it. And
Yes, at the expense of the cable users.
right, right,
And I just, you know, this is something else that your viewers might want to think about. That money that goes into the general fund from the franchise fees, that's like all the cable users paying to offset every person and business in Londonderry. So we could actually be helping, you know, businesses like power companies or junkyards or, you know, Shaw's or whatever. And they, you know, obviously aren't a cable user yet.
right.
So, You know,
it's just something to think about. Absolutely.
Exactly.
It's
So
another
all you
point.
cable users, and like you said, this is our biggest chance in such a wonderful way of expressing our freedom of speech.
Right. It would be very disconcerting if that would be taken away from us. And my concern is if this falls under the purview of the town would have the right to determine what kinds of programming goes on the Cable Access Center, and they should never have that right. This is a free and public access, and it should stay that way. So,
Yes.
thank you, Cindy, very much for coming on the show.
Thank you
And
for
this
having
is,
me.
no problem. This has been another installment of It's Your Choice. Please come to the deliberative session. For the town side, it is Monday the 6th of February at 7 o'clock at the Londonderry High School. And for the school side, it is Friday, February 10th at 7 o'clock in the school at the Londonderry High School cafeteria. Thank you for watching.